Okay. I was going to say today, but I want to welcome everyone to the conversation we're having because I understand there's a couple people from around the country, around the world that may not be doing today. So, we're going to talk Florida Southern men's soccer today. My name is Mike Moran. I'm an assistant athletic director, and I will be the MC tonight. But we also have a few other people um, that I'd like to introduce and explain a few things to. First and foremost, today's conversation is sponsored by NFocus Studios. Their goal is to deliver a message that brands your company in a positive light and drives business to grow. No matter the concept or size, the NFocus team approaches each creative project with inspired thinking and a business strategy to ensure smooth, effective campaigns are delivered to every client. So, like I said, we're here today to talk about men's soccer and men's soccer only. A lot of stuff going on in the world, but we want to take a break from it and just talk some men's soccer with some folks. I want to also introduce Al Green. Al Green will be working the chat and the questions and answers. So if anybody has any questions whatsoever that comes around men's soccer, just throw them in there and we'll discuss it. He may take a few minutes to get to it if he knows it's coming up later or it's more relevant somewhere else. So just hang tight with us and we'll get to all the questions. Um, Chris Gonzalez. Chris Gonzalez works in our sports information area. He is the master and the brains behind this whole thing. So we welcome Chris to help us out here. And let's not forget about the real reason why we're here, men's soccer, but men's soccer booster club, the primary fundraising arm of the program. So if you want any information on the booster club, please shoot us a message in the chat or the questions and answers, and we'll get you the link to it. So without further ado, I want to introduce one of the reasons why we're here. New men's soccer coach, Ashley Holmes. I think anybody familiar with the program knows the name. He started in 2020 as the head coach, but spent about 6 years as an assistant and a couple of different stints. But he's probably, if not the most decorated, one of the most decorated players ever to play here at Florida Southern. Started all 54 games that he played, 3-time first team All Sunshine State Conference defender, one of 3 players in team history to make the All-SEC team 3 times, the NSCAA All-South Region selection in 2010, twice selected as the most valuable player. The thing that I was a soccer player here for a couple of years, but I want to really harp on this stat. He was a captain for 4 years. I don't know if we need to say anything more. That's relatively unheard of in any sport. So it must have meant something from his coaches to his personality and his, to lead a team for 4 years. So welcome, Ashley Holmes. Would you like to introduce Pablo and have Pablo give a little bit of a brief background?
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. I'd love to introduce Pablo. He was a player for me while I was an assistant. I think if I get it wrong, I'm sure Pablo will correct me, but 2015, he's been a player for us, and then in the last couple of years jumped on the staff, and when the change happened in February last year, wanted to make sure that he stayed involved. And this fall's been a little bit difficult with a couple of the restrictions on campus, but Pablo's a huge part of kind of what we do and a huge part of the recruiting process. So happy to have him, and I'm sure if I missed anything, he'll fill us in right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely happy to be here. Thanks to Coach Ash and everybody for setting this up. Like Coach Ash said, I was a player, started in 2015, played all 4 years here, and then graduated in December of 2018, so a semester early, but decided to come back in February to join in with the coaching staff and, learn under 2 great coaches. So my pleasure to be here.
Great. Thanks, Pablo. Let's get right to it. Ashley, I know why, but a lot of people don't. What originally brought you to the United States and to Florida Southern College to play soccer?
It feels so long ago now, but I came over here in 2008. I was lucky enough to kind of play a good standard back home, and unfortunately, at 18, I didn't quite get a professional contract. So kind of looked to kind of see other opportunities, and knew a a guy who was actually my old coach who just started this kind of UK agency. I think at the time, one of the only ones out there. Now it's a lot different in the recruiting world, but got in touch with him, and he already had sent a couple of players to our conference. One had gone to Lynn and one had gone to Eckerd. So I spoke to them about the opportunities in the Sunshine State in Division II, and it was an easy sell to me. I saw Central Florida, and for any people growing up in England, 4 years of my life in Florida playing soccer, getting a world-class education was kind of an easy sell. So jumped on board, and 12 years later, definitely happy with the decision, and obviously happy to kind of be, head coach now here at my alum.
Great. The question that everybody wants to know, soccer was fortunate enough last year to get their regular season in, but as we all know, when COVID hit, it stopped everything. And let's be honest, the spring is important in soccer and any sport. How did you take it? How did the guys take it? And can you give us a little bit of insight on what happened when you had to tell them that, hey, spring's done?
So yeah, it was actually an interesting week. So the week before we kind of shut things down was spring break. The previous head coach, Coach Jason, had kind of told me during the break that he took another position at another college, and on the Monday morning, he was going to kind of tell the team that he was moving on and kind of going to let me take care of training that week. So the Monday morning, we had a meeting. We kind of told the guys, obviously Tuesday, got to the training ground, was extremely excited. First, real training session kind of at that time, like an interim head coach, felt like we had a good session, had another good session on Wednesday. And then I think the news started breaking Wednesday night, and Thursday afternoon, we had a meeting with the boys, and I was sending them home for the rest of the semester. So kind of had 2 days as a head coach. The boys were obviously very disappointed. I think we were fortunate in a way that we weren't in season. Talking to a lot of other head coaches, I can't imagine kind of having that conversation with the lads and explaining kind of, the season's done and we don't really know what's going to happen in the next few weeks and months. But the biggest thing at that point was just trying to get our international boys home safely, if they could travel out the country. And for the guys kind of domestically in America, just trying to keep them engaged, obviously with their schoolwork and, at that time still an eye on towards the fall with fitness and soccer related activities. But yeah, it was a challenging time for most people, and we were just glad that we could kind of be there for each other.
Yeah, to follow up on that, and I know this because of our conversation and our relationship, but all your guys couldn't get home. Is that true? They never went home.
Yeah, we had one guy who actually flew back to Colombia on Friday, so that was the first time he's been home in a year. He was extremely excited. I spoke to a couple of the boys. We had individual meetings on Friday afternoon, and they were telling me that he couldn't sleep on Thursday night. He was that desperate to get back to Colombia. So he's back home now, and enjoying family time, which is huge. But yeah, for a lot of the guys, they had to wait, or they had to go back and they quarantined. And then some guys went home and realized they wanted to come back to Florida, but then obviously couldn't travel. So there was a lot of kind of issues that we were kind of sorting out as a group. But for the most part, I think, guys understood the situation. At that point, at the start of the virus, it was all about how can they keep themselves safe and obviously their family safe as well.
Great. Thanks. Pablo, let's talk recruiting. You're the recruiting expert and guru, I heard. So we'll talk recruiting. First of all, how has recruiting been affected by the virus, at least here at Florida Southern, and did it change the way that Florida Southern recruited, or did it stay the same?
That's a great question, Mike. It was definitely an adjustment for us. Obviously, when everything kind of broke out after spring break, Ash and I had to sit down and figure out where we wanted to go with the upcoming class. At that point, we had no idea what eligibility would look like for seniors. We had no idea whether they'd be losing a year, whether they'd be able to come back. And, with all that in mind, we have to think about, okay, what are things that we can't compromise on in terms of the players that we bring in? So, him and I divvied up a list of, these attributes that we feel are non-negotiable. And that's kind of what we've been sticking to. On top of that, we had guys that were coming in for what would have been this fall season. And unfortunately, because of, this outbreak, they weren't able to come on campus. But we believe that we got a really good group of guys that if we had been able to get them on campus this year for a regular season, we would have been able to really compete. A lot of experienced players. And then on top of that, the freshmen that were able to come in, we think that it's one of the best freshman group that has been able to come in to Florida Southern, at least since I've been around the program. So definitely an interesting dynamic to it this year.
Well, let me do a follow-up question. One question that always comes in is that you already mentioned you have a player from Colombia, and we know you have a number of international players. How do you recruit them? How do you find them? Tell us about the international recruiting process.
Yeah, so basically, Ashley being from England has a lot of really good contacts all over Europe. There's a lot of companies that have started up, and what they do is basically they'll help high school students and players that aren't really educated on the process of how to get into the United States and play college sports or getting to a college. And they'll educate them on the process because they've gone through it themselves for the most part. So a lot of the people that run those companies have played in college here in the States, and that's how they're able to kind of transfer that knowledge to them, and they'll put them in contact with us depending on our recruiting needs. So for example, let's say that we're looking for a center back. We'll reach out to this company, or they'll reach out to us and ask us kind of what we're looking for in a player. We'll give them a sort of a profile, and they'll try to match it in terms of that profile that we give them. And sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. But that's pretty much how it's always done. It's always mostly through companies that help us out, and then there's also recruiting showcases that a lot of the time are put on by these companies as well.
Great.
You kind of said something that threw me in a direction. With that being said, I know for a long period of time during this past recruiting cycle that there was no travel allowed. We were not, as coaches, allowed to travel to see a recruit, nor were they allowed to come see us. And that has since changed a little bit. Did that, and Ashley or Pablo can answer this, whoever's better suited. Did that affect Florida Southern? I know Division I still has some limitations where they can't travel yet. So are these recruits looking to go other places than Division I because of that? Has it affected it, hurt, helped? What can you expound on?
I mean, at the beginning, it hasn't been that big of a deal for us. Like I mentioned, these companies are getting more and more advanced, and the amount of video and stuff that Coach Ashley and I go through on a daily basis is ridiculous. We watch, I kid you not, probably over 100 videos within 2-3 days, just players and players and players. And then to add to that, let's say we like a player, we'll ask for even more footage, whether it's a full match footage instead of just a short highlight clip. So it definitely it threw a wrench in the summer because Coach Ash and I like to go to these recruiting camps within the United States. And, that's how we see a lot of domestic players. But in terms of the international aspect, which is what we were talking about just now, it hasn't really made a huge impact because we're still able to watch these players through video and still have communication with them and learn about them as players and people.
Okay. Coach Ash, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the toughest thing is what's been nice in a way is because I've done a lot of overseas recruiting over the past 5 years as an assistant. I've kind of built up some good contacts across Europe. So now, again, like any kind of business, it's all kind of trusting each other and those relationships you've built. So not being able to go to showcases this winter, I feel that, although it's challenging not to see a player live in his own kind of environment, whether it's a kind of a league game or if it's at one of these big camps, we also have these relationships where, you know, people trust the level that we're at and we trust the level of player which we need. So, you know, now when we deal with these companies, a lot of them send us players which they know will fit kind of straight into this level. At the start, it's kind of players are broken up into kind of so many different tiers that some companies just start and will kind of send, like Pablo was saying, players who maybe not best suited to kind of our conference. So it kind of takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to kind of the level that we're at. So I think it's difficult not going over and seeing players live. As coaches, as scouts, we always want to see players live. But again, I think on the men's side, we're a little bit more adjusted and suited to watching videos day in, day out. So I don't think it's hurt us as much as, you know, maybe the women's side of the game. And I know they do recruit a little bit differently.
Okay. Question that always alumni and people close to the program want to know. You know, we know this, you know, your fall season was postponed to the spring. And I know we really don't know what the spring's going to look like yet. What does your team look like? Did you bring in some new guys? And I know there's some people coming back that saved their eligibility. I know that's put a little wrench in the works of coaches trying to figure things out with people staying and not leaving. So what can you add to that?
Yeah, I think obviously there's still so much in the air in regard to kind of a spring schedule. You know, for this fall, we were lucky enough to have just over half of the boys back on campus, whether they were on campus or kind of living in Lakeland and commuting. We had, I think, about 16 players back in different states, you know, in different countries. They're the guys who I think are more excited than ever to kind of get back to Florida and get back to Florida Southern and campus life and playing with the lads. But the lads who've been on campus have been, you know, brilliant this semester. They've had different challenges in regard to kind of been restricted in regards to training and what they can and cannot do. But they've kind of bought into, you know, what we're trying to, you know, accomplish here and what we're trying to lay foundations wise. So been really happy with kind of the level and what we're trying to achieve. And now it's just trying to get everyone back on the same page as we move into the spring and hopefully eventually play some games here. And, you know, for myself as well, hopefully, you know, have my first game as a head coach, which wasn't when I first took this job, expecting it to be an 8-9 month process. So yeah, looking forward to that one.
Great. With this past fall semester, everybody knows that some guys were back, some guys weren't. How did you train? Did the guys that are not on campus, did they train at all? How did that work with the guys on campus and were training with you? Did you get them together, or how does that work?
So it's one thing that, you know, myself and Pablo, and even we've got a fantastic leadership group who kind of go above and beyond. Some great leaders in that group who kind of the nucleus of our team. And one of the things we talked about early was the fact that we had a lot of players who could play kind of USL2, it's called, kind of like an amateur division here in America, and it wouldn't hurt their eligibility. So we allowed them to kind of play off campus. With that, it kind of restricted our hours on campus with how much time we could play with the ball. But we thought it was only fair that these players need to be able to be in a team environment and be able to play. So, you know, we had a lot of players training and playing in these divisions. We had players kind of back in Europe who jumped on board with, you know, amateur teams kind of within their vicinity of their house and either trained or played. And then for the guys on campus, it was just understanding where we're at. And at the start, it was just people were happy to train again and get out there and play. And obviously at the start, it was a lot of, you know, technical activities and stuff to pug goals and lots of shooting for players who maybe don't get that much chance to shoot in a real training session. So everyone was kind of excited and we were just out there kind of having fun. And then as the semester kind of built on, you know, the amount of sessions that I could design to 1 pug goal or 2 pug goals started to get less and less. And luckily restrictions started to open up and suddenly we could start having a little bit of pressure and start going into some possession-based activities. And the last few weeks has been great. You know, we've kind of took the reins off, and we played a lot of games and scrimmages as much as we can, with obviously only 17 players on campus and training and one keeper. But you know, it's been fun. Like I said earlier, the guys have been superb. Their attitude's been impeccable. They've just kind of got on with it and just kind of realized the situation we're in and just try to make the most of it and improve as much as they can.
Great. You know, I'll say a little story here about, it's probably to your testament of the program and the coaches you are, James. These players wanted to get back to play for you. I mean, some of them traveled with restrictions to different countries and quarantined just to get a chance to come here and train and play. And that means something from a program, at least from an administrator, to see players wanting to come back to the college to just train. They knew that season wasn't going to happen. They just wanted to come back and train and be with the guys and learn from their coaches. So definitely everybody had to, I don't even know what the word to use. Everybody needed a little bit of, it was like a puzzle piece, trying to get a puzzle back here. You know, so you guys got your hands full this upcoming semester. I hope everybody's coming back. It sounds like they are. So we're eager to see what this spring's going to look like. So, Al, any questions so far?
I've got a couple, but we're going to save them for the end.
Gotcha. Let's talk alumni, Ashley. We talked a little bit in the beginning about the Booster Club, but what, as an alumni of the college and the team, what does your past alumni mean to the current players in the program?
Yeah, I think that as an alumni and knowing obviously a lot of the older alumni than the alumni who are kind of I've coached and obviously I played with, you know, it's definitely a group who want to see change, who wanted to kind of see success over the years that I've been involved with. We have got some, you know, fantastic people who invest not only financial side of things, but also their time, who want to be involved. You know, I see he's in the call as well, but Chris Paul, who was obviously a great coach for the college, is someone who we speak regularly and someone who I meet, you know, in town, and we have conversations sometimes not even involving soccer. So just good people who want to be around and surround themselves with kind of what we're trying to achieve here. And, you know, one thing which I think, you know, we've done over the past few years under Coach Ryan and Coach Jason is we've started to kind of get more involved. We've started having, you know, golf days and alumni events, which hopefully are going to start bringing people a little bit closer to each other, and something that I want to include moving forward. The alumni support has been top. Obviously, my guys who I play with at times give me a bit of stick and, you know, make fun of the fact that I'm now the head coach. But, you know, at the bottom of the line, they want the team to succeed. They want it to improve. And I think now that, you know, as people kind of get a little bit older and, you know, they have a little bit more time and a little bit of money to kind of invest, that we've kind of seen over the last year that people are helping us out. And for a team that's resources are a little bit lower and scholarships are a little bit lower than some other teams in our conference, it makes a huge difference, and something that obviously we've seen has helped us go from near the bottom of the conference to kind of the middle of the conference over the last few years. So alumni, they've been fantastic. We hope to continue that relationship, and I'm sure over the coming years it will continue to get stronger, and we'll continue to hopefully allow players who graduate to go and have those relationships in a professional environment, or even just when they come back to Lakeland, have a place to get together and recount good stories and just have a good time.
Thanks. Talking about performance. Go ahead, Al.
I was going to say that that was a good segue for one of the questions, which is for both of you, since you both played here. What's your most valuable? Pablo, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, Al, you kind of broke up there at the end. What's your most valuable what?
Most memorable, what's your favorite memory of being a player?
Oof.
That you can tell us about.
No, no, honestly, Al, that's a good question. I would say my two most valuable memories both are honestly probably against Lynn. So obviously if you've been around the conference and, men's soccer, that Lynn University is, a powerhouse in terms of men's soccer, having won a couple of national championships in the past couple of years. My freshman year, they had just come off of a national championship season. I think they hadn't been shut out in a ridiculous amount of games. And when Lynn came to town, that was actually the first game I ever played a full 90 minutes for Florida Southern. And we were able to shut them out 1-0. They had the reigning national player of the year playing on that team. He hadn't been kept from scoring or assisting in a game in his entire college career, something crazy like that. And, that group of 2015, we were the first team to be able to beat them after them winning a national championship. So that was a great feeling. And then my senior year, beating Lynn at Lynn in overtime, James Meehan scoring a beautiful goal, running to the corner to celebrate with the team. It's memories you don't forget. And every once in a while, I'll go back and watch the highlights from that game. And it still brings up a lot of emotion when you see James chip the goalie and everyone just booking it down the line to go celebrate as a team.
Awesome. Ashley, we'll do a two-parter for you. Favorite memory as a player, favorite memory as an assistant coach, and I know your all-time favorite memory is coming up as soon as you have a season, and it'll be your first coach. But let's go back. What's your favorite memory as a player?
Oh, I mean, there's so many little moments. It doesn't have to be games. It could be just in the training room or just kind of in the locker room with the guys. I mean, for me, 10 years on now since kind of graduating, we have a group of friends who we talk to kind of on WhatsApp daily. My best memory of Florida Southern really is the group of guys who kind of, my best mates now and who are involved with the soccer side of things. And it's great to kind of see them be successful in their own careers. And, just those relationships we had, back then, I wouldn't say we were the most successful team kind of in the league, but at the same time, we were really tight. And, I realized that the relationships, on and off the field are as important as the wins and losses. So probably that, I know it's kind of a cop out, but that's probably my best memory from that standpoint. And then what was the last question now?
Favorite memory as a coach?
I was probably, to be fair, and it's the only time I think I've ever done this, I'm going to jump on what Pablo said. Normally, for people who know me, I'm kind of reserved on the sideline and kind of just go about and watch the game. But that game we won away at Lynn, again, just Lynn being the team they are, I think I managed to jog up the sideline a little bit when James scored the overtime winner. So it was a quick celebration and I got back to shaking hands. But it's probably up there as one of the better moments.
Awesome. Let me ask while I've got you, because actually one of the questions that just came up is asking about the evolution. You've been here for 12 years. You've been under 2 head coaches. What's the evolution of the program been like since you've been here? And what changes are you thinking about making? And I'm regarding to Bruce, I will type in an answer regarding the vaccine.
Well, thanks, Bruce, for joining.
Okay.
I don't know what time it is in over South Africa, but I appreciate you jumping on the call and taking the time to ask some questions. I think the biggest thing really is just kind of the steady kind of, like you said, the evolution. I've been fortunate to work under 2, very good head coaches with 2 complete different styles. So when Coach Ryan first came in, it was about kind of understanding the business side of leading the program. And I felt that we did a great job in kind of making sure we were a little bit more streamlined in our recruiting processes. We started venturing over to Europe a little bit more, and we started kind of taking care of stuff kind of off the field. We did have a conference quarterfinal appearance, which was, I think, the first at that point before, Coach Chris had one, I think, in the mid-2000s. And then, when Coach Ryan left and Coach Jason came in, it was just about kind of, building on that, and for everyone who's been involved with Coach Jason, everyone, he's such a great people person, and we started forging better relationships with the players, within the community, with even the department, and I think that kind of started to show on the field. It was taking us from kind of the bottom of the conference to the middle of the conference, and now I tell the players all the time that the easiest part is done. The hardest part is to come. It's kind of trying to forge that gap between middle of the road and being up there with some of the big hitters in the league who have higher scholarships and higher resources. And, it's my job to maybe instill a little bit more confidence that when we play these teams, we can compete, and we can, hopefully bridge that gap. And, next year, there's no expectations. There is a willingness to improve every year. And like I said, last year we were finished 6th. So if we can finish a little bit higher than that, then obviously it's a step in the right direction.
Great. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Al. Guys, let's talk a little bit about academics. We're here to play soccer, but we're also here. Ashley made it evident in his opening statement about world-class education. When you're recruiting, do you recruit a certain type of student athlete knowing what Florida Southern College academics requires?
Pablo, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, no, for sure. At the end of the day, if you can't cut it in the classroom, you're not going to be able to cut it in the field. I believe that those things play really hand in hand, because you can see tendencies in people's behaviors. So, for example, if we have a player that isn't willing to put in the extra study hours, isn't willing to go get tutoring when he needs help, how does that translate onto the field? Well, you're going to see players that aren't willing to go to extra training sessions, aren't willing to be in the athletic training room doing their prehab and rehab to make sure that they're fully fit for when the game comes. So there's a level of professionalism that as a player, I saw the transition from where the program used to be and from where it is now. And this program just continues to grow in that sense of the players that we're bringing in are professionals on and off the field in terms of what they're doing both on the field and in the classroom to make sure that there's no issues in that regard. Does that make sense? At the end of the day, they also need to meet the academic requirements to be able to come to the school. There's no getting around that. And the beauty of that is that it's maintained Florida Southern as such a respected name in the, for example, I was a business major, and I know that our business program is one of the top in Florida. So I know that if our players want to come here, they need to be able to meet that standard, not only for us, but also for the school to be able to maintain its name.
Great. Just to follow up on that, a little stat here. The Division II Athletic Directors Association, they have annual awards based on academic achievements. And Florida Southern student athletes in 2020, 167 Florida Southern student athletes as academic achievement awards. Florida Southern recorded the highest number of winners in the Sunshine State Conference and the 6th highest in the country in Division II. That's just a testament to the coaches, student athletes, parents, everybody, the institution about. It's not just soccer. I mean, we like soccer and we love to play it, but ultimately the student athletes are here for one reason, and one reason only, is to get a really good education and to play soccer, with maybe a small chance of a few getting to play in the professional ranks afterwards. I think that, goes along with your coaching philosophy, your recruiting. It's very important. You start recruiting, Ashley, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You start recruiting the wrong academic recruit, and they're not going to be here long, and then you're behind in recruiting and so forth. So kudos to you, Ashley. You've been around a while. Pablo's same, and we can only hope for better. So congrats.
Yeah, I think just to add on that, Mike, I think the boys deserve a lot of the credit for that. There is a culture in place where we don't require study hours, or we don't have a set time where the freshmen have to go and take care of classes. There's an expectation there. There's an expectation to get. I think at the moment it's a 3.3 for the semester, and last year I think as a team we were above a 3.4. Now, that doesn't mean that if a player is struggling in classes, they can't come into the office and we can have conversations about how we can improve grades, how we can help them, if it's tutor tables or just kind of be an extra resource for them. We have Coach George, who's an unbelievable asset to the program. You know, all the guys love him. He's doing his, I don't know what he's doing, a doctorate of like educational PhD or something way above my head, but he's a very smart man who the guys are there for all the time. And, you know, he does a lot with the academic side of it, and the guys respond to him. So the guys know that they need to take care of their classes. And like Pablo was saying a minute ago, if they can't keep their grades above a certain level, then I know that then maybe making shortcuts when it comes to their nutrition, or you know, them looking after their body. So it goes hand in hand, and I think the boys have done a good job in making sure that the standards are high both on and off the field.
Thanks, Ashley. This is a question that a couple people have asked me to ask you, and I don't know if it's going to be fair or not, but I'm going to ask anyway. International recruits versus domestic recruits. What is the difference, and how do you guys deal with that balance that makes it for a very fluid and good transition within a team?
You know, I'll start this, and Pablo, feel free to kind of jump on board as well. I think the hardest thing is in our conference is the fact that the league is a little bit older. You know, some teams have 30-year-olds playing on that roster. Other teams have an average age of probably mid-20s. The hardest thing for us when we recruit is making sure we get the balance right between guys who are experienced in regard to maybe the level they've played at another institution or from an academy, wherever that is in Europe, but also blending that in with, we have a lot of fantastic players in Florida who can definitely play at a high level, and making sure that they kind of fit with each other to, at the end of the day, you know, compete with some of the teams in our league who've had maintained success over the years. So, you know, for us and how we look to recruit, it's making sure guys want to be here for the right reasons. You know, Florida is a hot destination for international recruits. I was that 12 years ago, and as soon as I saw Florida, I was jumping on a bit to get out here. So sometimes players look to come to Florida maybe for lifestyle reasons rather than academic or soccer reasons. So we have to make sure we vet them in that regard. And then it's about making sure that they're here to, you know, improve and to get better. We have players who have aspirations to play professionally. And then, you know, the domestic recruits, a lot of the time, we know that it's going to be a challenge the first year or two, kind of getting involved into the starting 11, just because a guy who's 27, who's come through a top Italian youth academy is obviously a little bit more experienced than someone who's 17-year-olds coming out of a club in, you know, Central Florida. So we got to make sure they come in and they just nail and work hard and look to kind of improve day in, day out. And we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, guys who maybe didn't play a minute their freshman and sophomore year who suddenly started playing every minute their junior and senior year. So just looking to get players who want to be here, who want to kind of buy into the process and understand that we're trying to create something here which has never happened, and trying to win either a championship or a trophy.
Great. Pablo, anything else?
No, to be honest, I think Coach Ash, you know, worded it perfectly. At the end of the day, I feel like you're going to see a lot of really good experience from some of these international kids that come over, just because the attention to detail over in Europe to the development of the player is a lot different. And I would say maybe a lot more polished in how they go across developing their talent. In terms of American kids and like domestic recruits, I just think it comes down to making, like Ash said, making sure they're making the right decision based on all these factors that aren't just soccer. You know, there's a big idea that D1 is always better, but when you look at the talent in this conference and the quality of soccer in this conference, if your goal is to go to a extremely competitive and the best conference that you can go to in terms of the level of play that you're at. It's not always going to mean D1 unless you're going to like a Power 5 conference. The D2 or the Sunshine State Conference can match a lot, if not every single non-Power 5 D1 conference in terms of quality of talent and level of play. So to me, it just comes down to coming for the right reasons. If you're coming down or if you're ignoring a school just because they're D2, then I think you're making a mistake if that school could potentially fit your other needs.
I think those are both really good answers on that. I've received personally in my office this question, and I keep kind of delaying it. But Ash or Pablo, do we have any news on any Florida Southern camps that might be available coming up in the near future that people that are interested in the game or the school can attend?
Yeah, so January 9th, we're looking at hosting our ID camp. For anyone that's listening or knows somebody that would be interested in joining, especially for domestic students, it's probably the best opportunity to get in front of Coach Ashley and myself. Out of the past 2 freshman groups that we've had, just about every single one of the players that ended up coming to the school went through that ID camp process and came to that ID camp. So I always explain it as almost like the last step before deciding to join us, just because it's kind of like that final interview process. But yeah, getting in front of Coach Ashley and myself at our ID camp is probably, one of the best opportunities that anybody wanting to play here at Florida Southern could choose to do.
I think just adding on to that, Mike, I think, what I always tell recruits is it's kind of a two-way street. We need to make sure that you're a fit for us, but then vice versa. The recruit needs to make sure that we're a fit for them. And the ID camp allows them to have that opportunity. It allows them to obviously see the facilities and see kind of how maybe I coach and, my relationship I have with my current players and with the recruits. So again, sometimes you don't really get that interaction when we're out at a showcase or a game recruiting. So it just, allows them to, like Pablo was just saying, that final part of the process. Is this really a place where I want to spend 4 years of my life? And is this a place where I feel that I can improve on the soccer field, but then also obviously off the field and hopefully transitioning to graduate and go into the big wide world. So, it's definitely a thing which we take seriously here. And I think, like Pablo said, over the 5-6 years that I've been on the coaching staff, I think I can count on one hand the amount of domestic recruits we've had who have not attended one of our ID camps either in the winter or summer.
Okay. Al, do you have any other questions?
Chat. Not a question, comment at the moment. There are 2 more questions, but we'll see them. I put our website address in the chat, fscmox.com. If you go to our website, go to soccer, that's where you'll have the information about the camps.
Perfect. Thanks, Al. Ashley, I know this is a question that a couple of people have asked me personally, and I don't have an answer for them, but I'm going to ask it and see what you think. What is the spring going to look like? Do you have an idea of what the spring might look like game-wise or anything like that?
Well, we're hoping for games. I think the guys are jumping at the bit to play someone or just kind of get into an 11-11 kind of environment. Coaches keep talking, proposing ideas. I know that obviously our athletic director and our president are in conversations with other schools in regard to what a spring soccer season will look like. We've heard everything from a full kind of conference schedule through to breaking the conference into kind of 2 divisions and kind of playing a North and a South League. So at this point, we don't really know. Whatever happens, we'll just kind of take it and we'll just go with it. And we hope to play soccer and obviously hope to kind of get 35 guys involved with and then transition into next fall and see what happens then. But I think the one positive really is at the moment, I think we got 35 guys coming in the spring and 34 who want to be here next fall. So it's definitely going to be a great opportunity for us to really work on some things and try and continue building relationships and, hoping to kind of push the program forward as we move into the new year.
Great. I do want to remind everybody that the whole conversation will be tape recorded and available for other people to watch in a day or two, I would assume. So anybody that's on the call, please, if anybody's missed it from around the world, let them know to check our website. I'm sure the coaches can email the link as well. I believe it's put on YouTube. So, for anybody that did miss it, it's good information. We can spread this around to some of the alumni and so they can catch up with what's going on with the soccer. So appreciate that. Al, you said you had a couple more questions?
I've got two more at the moment. The first one, I think it's going to be an interesting answer. How was the transition of going from one day you're a player, the next day you're the assistant coach, all of your teammates are still there that you've been out partying with and having a good time and being a good college student with, and now you're the boss, you're the coach, you now have to become the mentor, you now have to check on their academics. How was that transition? I know it's a lot easier if you are, a player at Florida Southern and the next day you're an assistant coach at another school where you don't know anyone. How was that transition for the both of you?
I have an inkling as to who asked this question. Let's just say that. But in all honesty, don't get me wrong, it was a very difficult transition for me at first. Especially because when I originally moved back in February, I was still living with my college roommate who was no longer on the team. He had graduated and, moved on from that as well. But, still seeing all the guys on campus and still kind of being around that aspect of college life, of being around the apartments and stuff like that, that was difficult. Because obviously when I stepped into that position, I wanted to step into it with the highest level of maturity that I could. But at the end of the day, it's really difficult to just kind of rip yourself out of that environment when everyone around you who you've built such great relationships with is still getting to enjoy the college life. I'd almost say that the soccer aspect of it, like being at training, being at games, was a whole lot easier for me. Just because I feel like as a player, and I'm sure if you asked Coach Ashley, he would agree with this. As a player, I felt very comfortable leading in terms of like exercises and in terms of like whether it be like technical work or tactical work or whatever. I've always felt that I had a pretty good understanding for it. So leading as a player wasn't very difficult for me in that aspect. But yeah, I would say that the hardest part was the being around campus without feeling like a college student anymore, or wanting to feel like a college student, but knowing that I shouldn't, if that makes sense.
Good answer, Pablo.
It does.
I think
Ash, you got
I was going to say, Coach Ashley, how was that transition?
I think for me, very similar, really. Obviously, I finished my graduate MBA, and at that point, there wasn't a full-time assistant within the program. So I kind of volunteered for a year. And at that point, I still had, friends on the team who, to be fair to them, we had our relationship kind of away from campus and the team. And then on campus, when we were around the team, they were very respectful and kind of listened to me. And at the end of the day, we're just all trying to kind of get better together. Went away and got myself involved in the real world and tried to sell printers for about 4 months and realized that probably wasn't my name calling. And luckily, Coach Ryan at the time, full-time assistant came back and invited me to come back in. And at that point, when I joined back in, actually, Coach Pablo was starting to be a freshman. So a lot of the people who, I'd actually been around are starting to come through the program. So it was a little bit easier to kind of instill maybe my leadership and my kind of expectations around players who didn't know me as a player or as a kind of a volunteer assistant. And every year, as you kind of get more experience and more exposure, it gets a little bit easier until everyone who's kind of known you as a player is out the program and they can join in Zooms and just ask questions rather than kind of know who you are. So it's definitely it's definitely a good process. And like I said, the guys who've been involved with me and Pablo know how both of us are so passionate about leading this program forward, and hopefully over the coming years we can make that happen.
Good answer. Now I've got another question. You've been part of FSC culture and its evolution for longer than a decade. As a player, you work besides the head coach as an assistant coach, and you've now taken the role of the head coach. What was the first thing you applied to the team and your program that you wished was offered by a previous coach?
Good question. I think I know where that one's from.
I think you're right.
I mean, the hardest thing, like I said earlier, was this because of the spring. I mean, I had 2 days where, I had all these ideas and these plans, and then 2 days later, I was jumping on Zooms and FaceTimes for 3 months. So I couldn't really instill what I wanted to maybe achieve. I think, one thing that we definitely looked to try and do this summer was try and create a little bit more of a relationship between the coaching staff and the players throughout the summer. I think we did a good job in that regard, and the boys kind of jumped on board with that. And we've been in constant communications from March through to now. I think the biggest thing for us moving forward is, we've laid great foundations, and the previous coaches have done great jobs in kind of getting the program to where it is. And now I'm fortunate, hopefully, to kind of lead us to where it gets a little bit more exciting. And I think a lot of that just comes down to pushing the guys in the right regards, and to instilling that little bit of confidence and allowing them to express themselves and play, and just kind of being there really for, I look at myself as a player's coach, and I try and put myself in their position, and, would I want to play for myself? And the way I lead and the way I want the guys to be around the program is to come into basically to college every morning just wanting to be there and to improve and to have fun doing so. But at the end of the day, we're trying to win. We're trying to create something that hasn't happened here. So with that comes expectations and standards. And every single day we're trying to increase the standards and increase the expectations until hopefully we're at a point where we're playing and we can see those changes on the game field. So slow process for sure.
Actually, this question is a perfect follow-up to Adam's, which is, you were a team captain for 4 years. What do you look for? What are you going to look for in the players that you name captain?
Bottom line, I think, any captain or any player really for that regard, that they have to have that relationship with their teammates, but then also with the coaching staff. I look at our current captain as a secondary kind of extension of the coaching staff, really. They're only with us for maybe a couple of hours a day, and there's plenty hours left in the day where they can make their own decisions and their own ideas about, maybe not going out and doing extra training or going to areas where maybe they shouldn't be going to on a Friday or Saturday night. So, I look for leaders who want to be here for the right reason, and then try and instill that kind of leadership within the group and kind of manage it from an internal setting. And we're fortunate right now to have, some fantastic leaders, seniors who are keeping guys accountable on and off the field. And I'm hoping that will translate to, a little bit more success on the field as well. So guys who want to be here, guys who commit to kind of our 3 non-negotiables, really. We talk about work ethic, commitment, and humility. And they're 3 things that I look for when I recruit, and 3 things I look for to be part of the program.
Great answer. Al, do you have any other questions before we kind of wrap this up? I wonder if Al froze.
Great answer. Mike, back to you. We're done with questions.
Okay. I do want to, we're going to wrap.
11.
What was that, Al?
In an 11.
Ricky Martin.
Okay, can you guys?
Yeah. Ricky, as an alumni,
Yes,
I'd love
Ricky
to say
wants- No.
So the question is, in an 11v11, who would win, alumni or current players? And as much as I would love to say alumni, I'm guessing we would need 13 players because the youth that the group has, that our current squad has, would just, we might be able to compete for 20 minutes, but we got old people like Ashley running around the field. Don't want them getting hurt. So, yeah, no, our group right now is unbelievable. It's I would say one of the best squads that I think we've had at Florida Southern since I've been around. So definitely our current team would win.
Maybe not in a 4v4 for 5.
True.
I do have one more question. Hopefully my audio came back. Do most of the soccer players live together?
Yeah, for the most part, a lot of them, we've got a lot of older players right now on the roster, so that most of them are in apartments together. We have a couple of players who have relationships with other students on campus who decide to kind of live, with maybe a male swimmer or, a male basketball player. So, it doesn't matter, whoever they feel comfortable with, we kind of let them make those decisions by themselves. But for the most part, most of the guys, it's a close-knit family here and they want to live together. So, yes.
Very good. Ricky liked your answer on the alumni versus the current team. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Al. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. I do want to thank everyone for joining us here today, this evening, at night, wherever you are in the world. Remind everyone that don't forget about the Booster Club. If you need some information, let us know. Also, spread the word that this will be on tape on the YouTube. We'll put it out on our website and let the coaches have it, and so they can email it out in their groups. So, sometimes it's tough and, to jump on a noon or whatever time it is where you're at. So please remember that. We also want to thank Infocus. They sponsored this. Without our sponsors, we can't afford to do stuff like this on a regular basis. So Infocus is a studio, and their goal is to deliver a message that brands your company in a positive light and drives business to your door. So we want to thank them as well. And just be safe, and everybody keep in touch with the coaches and keep looking on our website to see what's coming up. And hopefully we'll have some answers for a spring season pretty soon. And so we can put it on our website and go from there. So that's
Mike,
about it. Absolutely. Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, I want to thank, obviously, I'm looking at the attendees list. I want to thank the alumni for jumping on board. Obviously, know most of you, but also want to thank Jack Plant, a guy I didn't really know until about a week ago, but supposedly played there in the 1960s. So I think right now you're definitely one of the oldest alumni who's involved in the group. So love to talk a little bit more moving forward, and hopefully we can get some more of the players you played with involved with the alumni program. But thanks everyone for their support, and looking forward to what the future holds.
Thanks, Ashley. Pablo, last words before we close?
Go Mox.
Perfect. Drew Howard will love you for that. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.